brunnit.
Quite. What are you asking us to sing?
No, I can sing it.
Just
If you
make
don't
sure
want
to
to
use
sing.
the raspy voice.
I have never been much of a scout, so...
I always do it my way. Vandraren har ingenstans att gå när kommit fram till slutet. Månen färgar alla skuggor, har ensam kvar där ute. Långt där borta från en enslig gård lyser värmen ut i natten. Väcker hungern i hans frusna kropp som har levt på luft och vatten. Ge åt men gå ändå, du kan alltid vända om. Ge åt men gå ändå, du är här och kom hit som en vandrare. Klockan ringer för en ensam själ, det har lånat röst av döden. Vill den lilla eller vill den väl, när den räknar vara huden. Sluta tänka är så svårt ändå, du får ta en dag i taget. Vandraren har ingenstans att gå om han var vits i slaget. Det gör ont men gå ändå, du kan alltid vända om. Det gör ont men gå ändå, du är här och kom hit som en vandrare. Also, often search for the treasure. He quickly surmised it and had probably been stolen by the giants, so he rode the winds to their homeland, Jotunheim. Upon arrival he changed back into his god form and approached the chief of the giants, Thrym. When questioned regarding the hammer, Thrym answered that he had indeed taken it, and that it was buried 8 miles below the ground, and added the lonely ugly giant he had no intention of returning it until Freya was made to be his bride. Loki flew back to Asgard and told his news to the fellow gods, who were alarmed and furious, especially Freya. As they sat in council, Heimdall put forth the following solution: that Thor go to Jotunheim disguised as Freya, and thereby win back his hammer and take vengeance on his thieves. Thor protested, saying that this was dishonorable and unmanly thing to do, and that all of the inhabitants of Asgard would mock him for the rest of his days. Loki pointed out, however, that if he didn't consent to Heimdall's plan, Asgard would be ruled by the giants. The gods thereby obtained Thor's quintessence. No detail was spared in the assembly of Thor's bridal dress. After the humiliated god had donned the costume, Loki offered to go with him as his maidservant. The pair climbed into Thor's goat-drawn chariot and made their way to Jotunheim. When they arrived, they were welcomed by Thrym, who boasted that the gods had at last brought him the prize he was due. At dinner, Thor and Loki found themselves in trouble. Thor single-handedly ate an entire ox, 8 salmon, and all of the dainties that had been prepared for the women, not to mention the many barrels of meat he drank. This made Thrym suspicious, and he declared that he had never in his whole life seen a woman with such an appetite. Loki quickly devised a response. The fair goddess has been so lovesick for you, he claimed, that she hasn't been able to eat for a week. Thrym accepted this answer, and was overcome by a desire to kiss his bride. When he peeled back the veil, Thor's eyes glared at him so intently that they seemed to burn holes right through him. He exclaimed, "Never have I seen a maiden with such frightfully piercing eyes."
I think that's good.
Loki, the master of deceit, explained to the giant that while Freya had been unable to eat, she had also been unable to sleep, so fierce was her longing for him. The ceremony soon followed. As was customary, Thrym called for the hammer to hallow their union. When Mjolnir was laid in Thor's lap, he grabbed its handle and slew first him, then all of the guests before constantly returning to Asgard and changing back into his preferred clothes. That is the tale, how Thor got back his hammer and slew the giants who stole it.
Excellently told.
Indeed. Can you do the one about Baldur?
If there's still time, I can do so.
I think we have a little bit of time.
Very well, if everyone wants to hear that tale.
My mother would tell me the story of Helm's ride to Hel, his bravery. It would be nice to hear it again.
Then I shall grant you that wish to honor your mother. What's that? Yorum, the tale of Maker, you mean? How the wall of Asgard has been made.
Ooh.
That story
That's a
I
good
know
one.
as well.
Is that the one about the Loki's kids?
It has to do with it, yes. And it's not too long of a story, the verse that I know. Would you like to hear it?
I would.
A certain smith arrived at Asgard one day and offered to build the gods a high wall around their home to protect them from any who might wish them ill. The smith, certainly a giant himself, said he could complete his work in a mere 3 seasons, but demanded a steep compensation, the hand of the goddess Freya in marriage, as well as the sun and moon. The gods took counsel together. Freya was adamantly against the giant's terms for them to start, but Loki suggested that the builder should obtain that which he desired, although only if he could complete his work in a single winter, with no aid from anyone but his horse. After much deliberation, the gods consented to Loki's plan. Of course, the gods had no intention of actually giving Freya away, nor the sun or the moon. They thought that the task they demanded was impossible. The giant smith, however, agreed to their terms, provided that the gods swear oaths to ensure that, if their conditions were met, they would fulfill their end of the bargain, and that he himself would be safe in Asgard while he worked. The builder set about construction the wall, and the gods marveled at how quickly the structure was raised. What was even more perplexing to them was that the giant stallion, Svalilfari, seemed to be doing almost twice as much work as the smith himself, hauling enormous boulders over the considerable distance to add to the edifice. When the winter near its end was only 3 days ahead, the wall was strong enough to be impregnable by almost any enemy, and, alarmingly, lacking little before it was finished. The stones around the gate had yet to be put in place. The anxious gods seized Loki and rebuked him for giving them such foul advice. They threatened him with death if he couldn't find a way to prevent the giant from finishing his task and making off with the beloved goddess Freya and the sun and moon, bringing never-ending darkness and dreariness to the 9 worlds. Loki pleaded with the gods to spare his life, and swore an oath he would do as the gods desired, come what may. That night, the giant and Svaldifari ventured into the snow-drenched forest in search of stones. Along their way, a mare, who was none other than Loki in disguise, whinnied to the stallion from a short distance away. When the stallion saw the mare, his heart wasn't the only organ that was roused with delight and lust, and he snapped his reins and bounded into the woods after her. The mare ran all night, and all night Svaldifari chased after her. When morning came, the giant's horse was still missing, and the now despairing giant knew that there was no way he could now finish the wall in time. The Aesir then paid the giant the wages they deemed he deserved. A fatal blow from Thor's hammer, which shattered his head into pieces no bigger than breadcrumbs. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Svaldifari had caught up with Loki, who soon gave birth to a grey 8-legged horse, Sleipnir, who became the steed of Odin. That is the tale, how the fortification of Asgard has been made.
An interesting tale, to be sure. I came here to say that we will be beginning the memorial service. So if you can make your way over to the area